Welcome to the September 19th, 2012 meeting of the City of Lake Forest Plan Commission. I'm Jack Reisenberg, Chairman of the Commission. At this time, I'd like to introduce the other members of the Commission. To my far right, Commissioner Culbertson. Next to him, Commissioner Lay. To my far left, Commissioner Kuchman. Next to Commissioner Kuchman, Commissioner Carris. And to my immediate left, Commissioner Ziccarelli. On the city staff, Mrs. Zerniak is here tonight. Our first item of business is approval of the minutes of the June 13th, 2012 Plan Commission meeting. Are there any corrections or requests for clarification? If not, do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. The next item before the commission this evening is consideration of a request for a special use permit approving phase 1 of a new master plan for the Woodlands Academy Campus. Phase 1 of the master plan includes replacement of the rooftop wireless antennas on Old Main and a new cell tower located on the northern portion of the former Barat Campus. Do members of the commission have any ex parte contacts or conflicts of interest on this matter? All right. Petition by petitioner. You know, before you start, I'd like for anybody who plans on speaking tonight or giving public testimony, could you please stand? Do you solemnly declare and affirm that the testimony you are about to give is true and correct to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Good evening. My name is Ralph Elward, and I'm a trustee at Woodlands Academy of the Sacred Heart. I'm appearing tonight on behalf of both Woodlands Academy and the current owner of the Barat property, SDG Land, which has consented to my representation. Also here tonight is Ron Spiata of SDG Land and Debbie Haddad, who is representing both Woodlands and SDG Land. In addition, we've asked representatives of AT&T to join us. We are here tonight to seek approval of the Plan Commission of Phase 1 of the Master Plan for the combined campus of Woodlands Academy. In essence, Phase 1 seeks to move the existing cell antennas currently on a chimney of the old main building. The new location is within the previously approved Personal Wireless Services Facility Overlay District on our combined campus. The 5 points we will cover tonight, supplemental to the filings we have already provided, are an introduction, the timeline to today, the timeline beginning today, the cell tower configuration and location, and other technologies. With that, let me continue the introduction. I have no intention of reviewing with you the previous filings we've made with respect to this application. Having appeared before the Plan Commission previously, we are aware that you are fully briefed and prepared, and we appreciate the time you've invested thus far. This is Phase 1 of the master plan for the combined campus of Woodlands Academy. As you know, a master plan is essentially a snapshot of the plan for the future at any given moment. The Phase 1 plan in your packets is a visual representation of what must be done to the campus leading up to the demolition of Old Main. There are other requirements in the city ordinance, some of which have been completed and others are in progress. A key first step in Phase 1, as required under the city ordinance passed in February of this year, which included the recommendations of this Plan Commission, is the relocation of the existing cell phone antennas from the Old Main building. Practically speaking, we cannot do anything until that step is accomplished. We have maintained a consistent position at every meeting with the City Council, its commissions, the task force, and general meetings with city staff. We are a school, and we'd rather not be in the cell tower business. There are 2 reasons which bring us here tonight. First, there are 3 sets of antennas on Old Main. Secondly, we agree with the city's wireless communications task force that the best solution for the entire community is to locate a cell tower on our property. We have the best opportunity to screen the tower while providing significantly improved voice and data reception to the community. This map outlines the approved Personal Wireless Service Facilities Overlay District. The map was copied from the city's website, and in the process of copying and enlarging, it has become a bit blurry. To help orient you, the old main building to the south, the Woodlands building to the north, and the boundary of the combined campus have been colored in red. This map is old enough that the library building, built in 1997, is not shown on it. The wireless overlay district was approved and in existence before the property was purchased on our behalf by SDG Land. With that as an introduction, let's look at the timeline which led us here today. In August of 2011, Woodlands first learned of this remarkable gift. From then until December of 2011, our efforts were directed at making the purchase happen. That is, the ultimate condition of the property would be suitable for Woodlands use. On December 20, 2011, SDG Land purchased the property. We celebrated briefly. And then we continued our work toward reaching an agreement with the city on the terms of an ordinance. In February of 2012, the City Council approved a special use permit ordinance. Even though we had an approved wireless overlay district on the combined campus and could have applied immediately for a permit to build the cell tower, we agreed in the special use permit to work with the city's task force to find the best solution for the city and for our fellow residents. Between February and July of this year, we worked to educate ourselves on the contractual and business issues and to evaluate the impact of relocating the antennas off-site, presumably on city property, and on our site. Our learning curve on cell towers and technology was steep. And for those of you who are not familiar with this business, you cannot imagine how much there is to learn. For our part, we relied on the expertise of outside consultants we hired to help us identify the issues. On March 15, 2012, we were invited to attend a meeting of the task force. At the meeting, we indicated that our preference was not to be in the cell tower business. We reaffirmed that we were researching two options. If the city decided to build a tower on its property, and second, if we were to build a tower on our property. We said that we would continue studying both options until we came to the point where we would have to make a decision. We told the task force that time was of the essence for us and that we would let them know when we had reached that point. On June 19, 2012, we sent a letter to the task force indicating that we had completed our research. We asked whether the task force had reached a conclusion and whether the city was interested in building the tower. We also indicated that we were prepared to go forward with tower construction on our site, absent an alternative direction from the task force. In July of 2012, we were advised that the task force was prepared to make a recommendation that a monopole cell tower with external antennas of a height of 110 feet be constructed on Woodlands campus in our approved overlay district. That was the site on our property that we had selected as well. Since there would not be sufficient time to file all of our paperwork, take our photos, and conduct our tests in order to make the August Plan Commission agenda, we asked that we be put on the agenda for the September Plan Commission meeting, and here we are. That's the timeline to today. Here's what we expect the timeline to look like going forward. Since the Plan Commission and the City Council have already approved the wireless overlay district on our campus, we anticipate that the approval process would be less involved than if we were beginning with no prior approvals. At some point, and we have no expectations, the Plan Commission will make its recommendation to the City Council. We are referring to that day as day one as a point of reference. To be clear, we do not know when the Plan Commission will make its recommendation or what it will be. But this will allow us to look at probable or possible dates going forward. Delays at any stage in the process will obviously lengthen the timeline. Within approximately 30 days, the City Council will hear the recommendation of the Plan Commission and take its action. We are guessing that will be accomplished in October of this year. 6 to 9 months following the anticipated approval of the City Council, We expect all governmental and regulatory approvals to be obtained. That part of the process cannot begin until the Plan Commission and City Council have completed their actions. This was one of the steeper segments of our learning curve, given the complexities of obtaining federal approvals. But relying on what we've heard from our retained consultants and from cell companies, we are comfortable that this can be accomplished within the indicated time span. We believe that the Plan Commission, City Council, and Task Force have heard testimony previously about all of the steps involved in obtaining federal approvals. Nevertheless, we expect this step to be completed between April and July of next year. Once the approvals have been obtained, including local permits, we expect construction of the tower to take between 60 and 90 days, including the moving of equipment from Old Main to the cell tower. We have researched the possibility of using temporary cell antennas, cells on wheels, or cows, but the associated expense of renting one for each of our tenants does not make this a viable option. As the timeline indicates, once equipment is moved and functioning, we intend to begin demolition the following day, and phase 1 of the master plan for the combined campus will be completed. Now that's the timeline as it appears in our vision. Let's look at the tower configuration and location. We are applying to build a single pole, a monopole, with external antennas 110 feet high on the site previously approved. Even though the height is significantly lower than the typical of antennas of 190 feet or higher, an antenna of 110 feet is sufficient for our purposes. We understand that we will be able to move our 3 tenants to the tower. Although it is far from certain and essentially an engineering question, the tower may be able to accommodate 4 commercial carriers. As you will note from the coverage maps provided in your packets, the quality and breadth of coverage provided by the new tower will significantly improve the data and voice coverage we currently experience on the southeast side of Lake Forest. Skipping ahead in our agenda just a bit, we have learned, and I believe the task force has learned as well, that so-called stealth towers, the ones with no external antennas, are a solution which works only for the carrier located in the top position. Because the cables and antennas are side by side inside the tower, any position on the pole below the top will suffer moderate to severe degradation in signal. Stealth towers are significantly thicker, much more observable, and in our case would require essentially 3 towers to accommodate our tenants. Both we and the task force agree this is not a viable option. Frankly, the sight of 3 antennas side by side on our site is not acceptable. Using external antennas allows for a single tower solution at a height previously approved in our overlay district. In determining the best location on our campus, we listened to the recommendation from the task force, we discussed it with our master planners to assess the impact on our future plans for the property, and we walked the property to judge the impact from ground level. In the end, all were in agreement with this selected site. This location provides the best screening possibilities both on our combined campus and when viewed from other locations off campus. On 3 different occasions, we had a fire truck and 2 bucket trucks at the location. At various times, members of the task force, city staff, Woodlands representatives, and members of the Plan Commission and City Council then drove around the area to test and assess the visibility of the tower. The results have been very consistent and very encouraging. The screening is effective, as you can see from the photos in your packets. Obviously, when the leaves have fallen, it will be more visible. But we cannot make the tower invisible any more than we can keep the leaves on the trees. Nevertheless, we believe the visual impact is minimized, and that was our goal. We also selected an area where the least number of trees would be affected. Although there is a wetlands area on the city property to the north of this location, it does not extend into the site on our property. There are no legacy trees in this area. But a tree is a tree, and we wanted to minimize the number of trees which would be removed. We've done that. By situating the cell site in the center of the approved overlay district and on the edge of the tree line, the only trees affected are smaller, non-legacy trees. The larger trees are not only preserved, but also contribute to the screening. On this map, which is an enlargement of the one in your packets, you can see the cell site circled in red. That is not the size of the cell site, only the location. At the right and left of this area are larger trees which will help screen the tower. As those of you who visited the site can confirm, virtually all of the cell site, the leased area of 40 feet by 65 feet, would be immediately inside the tree line. This will minimize the visibility of the tower from the surrounding locations as well as from our own campus. The cell site is 50 feet from the northern property line, where the required setback is only 25 feet. And the base of the tower itself is 62 feet from the property line, where the required setback is only 50 feet. Now that leads us to other technologies, which I've covered a bit already. The task force obtained independent information, discussed other technologies, and recommended the site at Woodlands. Next, a distributed antenna system, or DAS, is not a replacement technology. It is an augmentation technology. You still need to have a tower. Most importantly, at least from our perspective, 2 of our 3 tenants do not have the capability to use DAS, so in any event, it would not provide a usable alternative to us. That's what I've covered in a short period of time. There are a couple of points we'd like to leave you with. We've heard from some that we're moving much too slowly. At the same time, we've heard from others that we're moving way too quickly. I can understand how people can feel either way. Over the past year, we've spent a good deal of time arranging for the purchase of the property, and we've spent some time learning what we need to know to make good decisions. That may seem slow, but there was much to do and much to learn. To others, like our neighbors who recently received this meeting's notice from us, it may appear that things happen overnight, but they don't. A number of people from the Lake Forest community have devoted hours and days to discussing this issue, exploring every option, and debating the pros and cons for the residents of this city. We believe the task force's recommendation is a workable solution. When Woodlands looks at this solely from its perspective, it's not perfect. But when we look at this from the perspective of the best overall interests of the Lake Forest community, we are a member of that community as well. We see this as the best solution. Therefore, we ask that you approve our application for a special use permit of Phase 1 of the master plan for Woodlands Academy. Our cell company tenants have been very cooperative in working towards an acceptable negotiated solution. We're not there yet, since we have to await the outcome of this process, but we are optimistic given our discussions to date. Most importantly, we are supportive of our tenants' efforts in helping us find a way to make this solution work, especially with AT&T. We've asked technical experts from AT&T to be available tonight to answer any technical questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Identification of issues by staff.
Thank you, Chairman Reisenberg, members of the commission. I'm going to try not to repeat. There was a lot of information in that presentation, but there are a couple points that I do want to emphasize. Essentially, a year ago, the Plan Commission started looking at this project, which really continues today. A year ago, just about a year ago, the request for a special use permit came forward from Woodlands to allow the incorporation of Barat Campus into the Woodlands property. And as Mr. Elwert described, that process went through the Plan Commission, ultimately resulted in City Council approval in February of 2012. So this is not a new petition, essentially, that is coming before the Plan Commission. As Mr. Elwert said, this site for this proposed tower is an approved site today in the code. The only reason this is before you is because when the Plan Commission discussed this last fall, you recommended to the City Council, you said, we know this is an approved overlay site, but development of this campus, redevelopment of this campus is so important that we want to make sure if a new tower is proposed here, we want to see it. We want to see it as part of the new master plan for Woodlands Academy. So that was a provision of the special use permit approved by the City Council. So this is before you almost as a double review. It's approved in the code right now. You saw the proposal last fall for incorporation of Barat Campus into the Woodlands campus, and now today you're seeing this again, really as the first step in a new master plan coming forward for Woodlands Academy. This, the request before the Plan Commission is to make a recommendation on the request for a special use permit approving phase 1 of a new master plan for the Woodlands campus. So it's kind of a complicated action, and it's tied with a lot of past actions. But I think setting that context is important, that this is back before you because you asked to see it. Why this site? Before the opportunity for the donation of Barat Campus to Woodlands Academy, as a community, we had looked at Barat Campus for almost 10 years. In the most recent years, no one was sure what was going to happen to this site. Previously, there was a residential development, Barat Woods, approved for Barat Campus. Because the property seemed to be moving in the direction of being redeveloped with a new residential neighborhood, the Plan Commission considered at that time, while the property was in the ownership of the bank and we didn't know who was going to buy it, the Plan Commission considered whether the overlay district in which this proposed tower is located should be eliminated from the Barat property, because the thought was that if the property was developed with a new residential neighborhood, having a tower located right there would severely compromise that new development because it would essentially be right there. This tower is actually located in the very area where homes and streets would have been constructed as part of Barat Woods. So this is part of the site that was already going to be developed. At that time, the Plan Commission considered whether the overlay district should be moved to city properties. A city property located just across the railroad tracks at the corner of Westleigh and Western. It became obvious that that site, number one, was much closer to residential homes in the area, and number two, would be much more visible. Another city-owned site, right-of-way on Sheridan Road, a bit further south, was considered. The area is currently a ComEd substation. That site, although some have termed it as ugly right now, we looked carefully at that site, and to add a cell tower at that location and all the necessary ground equipment would be very, very visible from Sheridan Road, which is an entrance to our community, from Westleigh Road, from many other parts of the community, the Whispering Oaks subdivision. So that was identified as a possible site, but when the opportunity arose to work with Woodlands to encourage them to locate this tower on their site, given the fact that this site is going to be used as a campus, this really is the best site in this part of the community, the site that is most screened in this part of the community. So that is why we've kind of gone full circle, looked at other sites in this area because of some unknowns about Barat Campus. But this opportunity to locate a tower on an educational campus really is consistent with what has been done at Lake Forest College, what has been done at Lake Forest Academy, and also at Lake Forest Hospital, to use the community's institutional lands to really set a tower in an area where it is screened and does not immediately impact neighboring properties. The final point I wanted to talk about was the visibility. I know some of you were out to the site and had an opportunity to look at the bucket truck. As Mr. Elward mentioned, we have done this exercise now 3 times. You did have some photos in your packet taken from different locations. And we do recognize that this tower will be more visible than it is today, more visible in January than it is today. But this location, we continue to believe, is very well screened. It is completely on the Barat property. It does not encroach at all into the South Park Woods. As part of our due diligence, city staff walked both the South Woods and this area of the Barat site with representatives from Open Lands. And Open Lands agreed that this part of the Barat property, this part that was going to be part of the Barat Woods development, is not a loss from a natural natural perspective. This is a good location for the tower. And the other commitment that has occurred at the city level, recognizing that several years ago the council identified the South Woods as an area to be protected. As we see Woodlands begin to clean up their site, there's been renewed commitment on the part of the city. In fact, we've had the discussions with Open Lands to really begin to develop a plan for really enhancing, cleaning up and protecting the South Woods, so that as Woodlands Campus is developed, we're really looking at some overall improvement and enhancement in that area. I would note that the Wireless Task Force was involved in this. Mr. Elward referenced it, and both Commissioner Carris and Commissioner Ziccarelli were part of that task force. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Before we get into questions or requests for clarification from commission and the commissioners to petitioner staff, I'm going to go off the agenda a little bit. As Kathy mentioned, Commissioner Carris and Ziccarelli were two of the five members of the commission.
Right.
And we didn't really, there really was no formal. Sure, Mike. My mic is not on. My mic is on now? Thank you. Before we get in, we didn't have a formal presentation by any member of the commission. So, Augie, could you just give us a kind of a synopsis of the process and perhaps the conclusions and whatever you think might be, worthy of presentation to not only the commissioners but to the public?
Certainly. Thank you, Chairman Reisenberg. I would be happy to. The Wireless Communications Task Force was established in January of 2012 as a short-term study group appointed by the city manager. The group consists of 5 residents, as mentioned, including Commissioner Carris. Kathy attended every meeting as a city representative, kept all of our discussions on a very thoughtful track. The group was formed to provide recommendations on how the community could best balance the needs of high-quality wireless service with the potential visual impact that comes with it. As part of the responsibility of the task force, we were to review the current code, which was last updated in 1999, develop an understanding of the wireless needs of the community, study current technologies, as well as alternative technologies, including DAS, which Mr. Elbert referred to, explore the idea of using city-owned properties and/or existing structures for wireless deployment sites, and prepare a summary to the city manager with our findings and recommendations. Concurrent with the Wireless Task Force responsibilities, in February of 2012, although not specifically mentioned in our original purpose and charge statement, there is a parallel process to arrive at a solution for the Woodlands property due to the specific time sensitivity of their situation. It's intended that the Woodlands situation be addressed separately, but the solution fall within the future rewritten code that we're still currently working on. In other words, we're not doing anything special. The conditions that fall within this conclusion, we hope to fall within the rewritten code. The only consideration we're giving Woodlands is a time consideration to put them in the fast lane. As a group, we've met 11 times thus far, including 3 site visits to the Woodlands property. Meetings have included discussions with our city attorney, various wireless providers, a cell tower builder, Woodlands, the petitioner for the special use permit, and also included in our meetings were discussions of summary reports from members of our group who have had discussions with at least 7 different municipalities. The facts uncovered during our discussions that have a bearing on our recommendation include Woodlands is responsible for 3 carriers with leases all the way up to 2024. This is a long-term solution. The cell on wheels is not a good solution for them. The carriers tell us that data usage has increased 20,000%, or 200 times in the last 3 years, due mainly to video components and other features on cell phones. The carriers also tell us they have a hard time keeping their infrastructure up with the features of new devices, and they are continuously playing catch-up with their infrastructure to make the new devices work. We also found out that Section 704 of the 1996 Federal Communications Act states that cell towers, and I'm somewhat paraphrasing here, are subject to local zoning, but cannot be denied if deemed necessary for the public good. With this information, it led us to the following approach to the Woodlands situation. The distributed antenna system was explored at great length and found to be a good supplement, but not a good anchor to a wireless system. And as Mr. Elbert had said, not all the carriers that they've contracted with can use the DAS system. We looked at using existing ComEd poles along Sheridan Road, but we were told that the law states that utility companies cannot deny other utility companies the use of their structures for compensation, but they turned out to be too short. So that plan did not work. The ComEd site, as Kathy had referred to, was looked at, but the visual impact was too great. The city-owned warning system, consisting of 13 locations connected by fiber optic poles, was considered, but in Woodland's particular case is not a help to their situation. So at this point, we began on the current proposed site, looking at the current proposed site, which is in the wireless overlay district. We visited the site 3 times, as has been discussed. We took observations at 360 degrees around the site, and there was minimal visual impact on Western Avenue, almost no visual impact on Sheridan Road. The greatest visual impact took place from the South Park ball fields, which I would say, without an exact measurement, maybe 20% of the cell tower could be seen, based on the ladder truck that was projected. We also obtained propagation maps from a carrier who is one of the 3 Woodland tenants, and the map showed a predicted improvement in the southeast corner of Lake Forest with the proposed plan. And additionally, as I had said before, consideration is given to the fact that we're working within the boundaries of what we hope to be a rewritten code. The Wireless Commission Task Force has provided a summary of our findings and recommendations in our September 14th, 2012 report for the Woodlands petition, with code changes being proposed within the next couple months. Both of these pieces would fulfill our purpose. Given our initial charge of balancing the needs of high-quality wireless with visual impact to the community and all of the facts and circumstances surrounding the petition, the Wireless Communication Task Force supports the petition as the best solution to Woodland's situation.
Good, thanks, Augie. Augie, if you mentioned it, I missed this. Who were the 5 standing members of the commission?
Alderman David Moore was the chairman.
Okay.
Myself and Commissioner Carris, Richard Steck, and Michael Williams.
Okay, thank you.
If I can-
Yeah, Commissioner, because I was going to invite you to add.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Ziccarelli summarized it beautifully. But I will say as a commentary that we went into this process, I think, with the solution of a cell tower being probably one of our last choices. We didn't anticipate we would end up with this recommendation. Did exhaustive research on everything from safety, the collapsibility of cell towers, to the communications, the alternative technologies going in the future, not just now, but 10, 15, 20 years in the future. And I think it was a really exhaustive effort on the part of the city as well, and the Woodlands Academy along with us, to go ahead and reach this resolution and this recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll go back on agenda. Questions or requests for clarification from commission to petitioner or staff, beginning with Commissioner Culbertson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 questions. Actually, I'd like to ask the commissioners who were on the task force, did you agree with Mr. Elwert's conclusion that the external antenna is preferable to the stealth antenna configuration?
We knew that the Stealth could only contain one carrier, and I know that they have contracts with 3 carriers. I think one contract is through 2024, the other through 2019. The other is a month-to-month, I believe.
That's correct.
And so the idea of having 3 was not appealing to us. We didn't explore it all, at least I didn't explore it all that much.
No, that was our understanding, though.
Right. Is it in fact true that a stealth antenna can only accommodate one carrier?
That's my
our
understanding.
Yeah, that's our
That was the
belief.
task force explored that, and that's their conclusion?
That's our understanding, yeah. The technical, I think somebody from AT&T here can explain that in more detail as well, from the technology side of it.
Are they part of the petitioners contingent, or?
That's a question for Kathy, I don't know.
I don't know if it's appropriate for me to ask him now, Mr. Chairman. That's.
Go ahead.
Sir, would you be willing to step forward and address that issue?
And if I can interject before you talk, we did interview the AT&T people. We interviewed various, not as part of Woodlands Supplier, but as part of our due diligence in researching the different carriers, the different technologies, the different alternatives present, so.
Good evening. My name's Mike Beanick. I'm with a company called LCC Law, 10700 Higgins Road, Suite 240 in Rosemont, Illinois. We represent AT&T. The question about the Stealth, the reason that it's so limiting is because the antennas have to go inside the canister of the tower, and all the cabling comes up into that tower as well. And what happens is, in order to get those antennas that you sit out on the platform, in this case we would have 9, you would have to have stacks of antennas that are inside that tight circle. So you would, for AT&T to use that tower, they would have, for their 9 antennas to accommodate the new Wi-Fi technology and all that, you'd have three rungs taken up right there already. And that would completely eliminate any other carriers from using that tower as well.
Understood.
Unless what's
Well,
substantially higher,
right,
correct?
okay.
Unless,
Right.
exactly.
Oh,
And then if you, with the Stealth tower, if you go higher, you go wider.
Right.
thank you for the clarification. My other question is, I guess it's of staff. In the event that the current technology that's employed with the proposed cell tower became obsolete, or for whatever reason, the cell tower fell into disuse, is there a contingency plan which requires its dismantling and removal in that event?
Yes, there's actually a provision currently in the wireless ordinance that requires removal. I would also, it's usually the case that with respect to the private leases, there's also a clause that speaks to disuse, so it's covered in both those areas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have for now.
Okay. Commissioner Lay?
Yes, I just have one question, and that is, how much higher is the top, I know it's 110 feet for the proposed new tower, but what is the height of the current configuration on where they're currently located?
I understand they're fairly close. I do not have exact figures. Mrs. Zerniak, do you have those numbers?
My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the antennas currently on Old Main are between 90 and 100 feet. Old Main itself is constructed on a higher part of the ground. As you move north from the Old Main building, you go toward the ravine. Beyond that, you go to the asphalt parking lot. And this location is actually, as you move toward the woods, there's a further depression area. So in the end, you're really at a height very close to what the antenna are currently. There's not much difference. The 110 feet really is necessary to provide the adequate replacement coverage, and because of the configuration of the tower, not only does it replace coverage, but significantly enhances coverage, which I will add was something that our public safety staff was really pleased to see as something that might occur with this tower.
Commissioner Kuchman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Along the lines of the stealth tower discussion, did the commission explore a hypothetical height at which point it was more acceptable to have a stealth tower even if it was higher versus an exposed tower at a lower height? And was there ever a discussion about that, just out of curiosity?
Not, not that I recall. The idea of trying to minimize height, take care of the three carriers was at the foremost, and so if we had to go, that discussion did not take place.
Okay.
I don't know how high we would have to go to take care of the three carriers.
Yeah, I think that was the point, was
Okay.
to try to minimize visible intrusion.
Regardless of the exterior aesthetic? The height was an overriding concern as
I
opposed to the
think so,
exterior.
Correct.
that, at least for me.
Can I ask, who are the other tenants, other than AT&T?
The other tenants are Sprint and Motorola. Commissioner, I want to clarify something that you said. You mentioned that this would be an exposed tower. This is actually a monopole. You can't see through it. It's not going to be one of those that looks like an erector set. That would be more of an exposed tower. Just to make sure that we're all talking
No,
the
I'm
same
sorry,
language.
I'm using improper nomenclature, and I apologize for that.
Don't feel alone. We struggle with this too.
So my other question is then, so Verizon is not here, T-Mobile is not here. What happens when they show up? What do they do to service the southeastern portion of the community?
Presumably, they go through the same permitting process. Once we have approval of the location of the tower, from that point on, it becomes an existing permitting process to have the antennas installed on the towers.
And the 110 feet that's being proposed would accommodate a couple, three additional carriers conceivably then?
Correct. As I mentioned in my comments, we expect all three of our tenants to fit on there. And there is a possibility, although it's currently an engineering question, about whether we can fit 4 commercial carriers on there.
Yet there's more than one additional potential lost element here from a major service provider. Am I missing something?
I'm not sure I understand that.
So you've got three existing. You've got the ability potentially to put a fourth on the tower to be created. However, T-Mobile, Verizon are 2 carriers that come to mind that aren't there. So there's more than one major carrier that still has no presence in the southeast portion of the community. Is that correct?
It really depends on their systems. Not every carrier has the same type of system. Verizon currently at least tells us that it has adequate coverage in that area. As the task force completes its work, they will be recommending, as Commissioner Ziccarelli mentioned, an amendment to the code. And as part of that work they're doing, they will be looking at other sites in the community that may be an opportunity for co-location on existing structures, or the task force may identify a couple other possible sites for towers. So the task force will be looking forward, and we will continue to work with other carriers that have adequate coverage. With them, we may be able to use some different technologies to fill in some gaps. I also wanted to mention, in response to your earlier question about height, the code only permits a tower of up to 110 feet in this area. So that is the maximum allowed by the code.
Yeah, I understand. I guess I just have a hypothetical question about whether or not that code is adequate. Should it be 120 and 130, or 130, pick a number, in order to accommodate all potential future major carriers, as opposed to having to come back here and try to figure out whether or not a second tower is warranted in some other location. So that's the nature of the question.
We did meet with T-Mobile and Verizon. They didn't express a specific need for this area at this time.
Okay. Well,
But we did meet with them.
So it might be a moot point. Just out of curiosity, you mentioned a 6 to 9 month federal approvals process. What's entailed in that process? What will they learn, or what could the community learn as part of their review?
I'm not going to try to go through that process with you, but I know there are people here that can explain it in much greater detail. Would that be Mr. Flowers?
Good evening. My name is Andrew Flowers. I am the Senior Real Estate Manager for AT&T Mobility. Your question about the federal process and what it's going to take to, why does it take 6 to 9 months? I wish it only took 6 to 9 months. In some cases, it takes longer. But basically, since we hold a federal license, we're obligated to file, one of our pieces is to file with the Indian tribes that have ever had an interest of traveling through this area or have an interest in the area in general. So in this area, I believe there's somewhere in the range of 22 Indian tribes that have expressed an interest that we have to file with. So we file basically documents that look like what we file for zoning, the lats and longs, the height of the tower, what kind of facility we're building, and we have to get their buyback on every single one of those tribes have to say yes. If they ask for additional information, then we have to go down that path. So typically that takes about 4 months to do that piece. Then we file with the FAA and make sure there's no lighting on the tower and there's no lighting on this facility. We file our licenses with the FCC so that they know what frequencies we'll be transmitting from. And we also do an environmental inspection of the property to make sure that when we're out there digging that we're not going to end up finding something that we didn't know was there and be liable for potential cleanup of the property. So when you start adding all those pieces into the puzzle, it usually takes 6 to 9 months just trying to get through some of the governmental bureaucracy.
Gotcha. Thanks very much. Appreciate that.
I hope you have no
further
more questions.
No, I don't. I don't want to know anymore now.
Too much information. Commissioner Carris.
No questions.
Commissioner Ziccarelli.
No, thank you.
And I have no questions. That was plenty. Public testimony, not to exceed 5 minutes per speaker. Yes, ma'am.
I have 3 PowerPoint slides. I guess I could go back and forth.
I don't know. Kathy?
Sure.
Can somebody help her? Whoa, she knows what she's doing.
I just want to get out of your presentation with us, please.
While they're doing that, you could introduce yourself.
She can use the handheld.
Sure. You could use the, you could probably use that handheld if you like it, or you can, whatever you're comfortable with. Yeah, it sounds like it.
I'm Kathy Dorman at 730 Highview Terrace.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say this feels a bit like a fait accompli to me, but I thought I could be a voice here.
Sure.
That's yours, right? Yeah, you can make it full screen now. There we go. So I have 2 things to ask you about. I live in the Northmore neighborhood, and this has been my view from South Park for 32 years. I really, really love this view.
Mm-hmm.
And when my husband and I have been away living in other places, I often think of this view. And so I don't know how important aesthetic things are going to balance out with the public need of cell phone towers. I feel like a Volkswagen here with semi-trucks, with cell phone companies here and lawyers for cell phone companies. But that's an important view to me, and to lose that view is sad for me. That's just all I can say about that. I took something, I don't know how this is gonna work. I had a document that had been sent to the Lake Forest Preservation Foundation with a sketch of the tower. So I scanned it and put it in here, and tried to get a sense of what I would see from the park, based on how big I think oak trees get. And how big oak trees get depends on where they're growing. But, maybe a nice mature tree would be 80 feet. But probably in this case, less. And also that this elevation, as Kathy mentioned, is up. I've walked those woods a lot. You come down into the woods. So I think that's what I'm going to see, and I'm not real happy about that. And You know, it's better than the housing development that was going to be there, but it's Woodland's first gift to my neighborhood is a little bit what it feels like. This is the loss of my view. The second thing has to do with this woodland. Many of us from this Northmore neighborhood were before this commission 5 to 6 years ago when the Barrow Woods properties were being proposed. I know a lot about these woods. I'm not a naturalist, but I do know, and I've been in there with many naturalists, that this is a high-quality oak hickory remnant native forest with 2 wetlands. I have the city survey on that. And I don't know if you can make really some kind of distinction between where the city-owned South Park woods are and the Woodlands-owned Barrow woods are. It's a big whole unit of a woodland. And so I have a lot of questions about what's going to happen to this woodland, which does need protection, and we tried to get protection for it a few years ago. So how far would this be from the legacy trees? So we know that oaks are pretty sensitive to development. And so how far are we talking about going into the woodlands, and how many major trees would we be near? The second thing is how many smaller trees, just because they're not legacy doesn't mean they have to come down. How many smaller trees would come down? Could it be that this could be moved a little bit further south into what's already open? There's a lot of grass there, there's parking there. It might not protect Woodlands as much, Woodlands Academy, but it would protect this forest better if we didn't put a 40 by 60 foot pad right into a woodland to try to hide it. Because we're gonna you'll affect the whole ecosystem there. So those are my 2 points, is the aesthetic loss, and is there a way to minimize the impact on the woods? I don't think we can make a distinction between South Park Woods and Barrow Woods. That's one big piece. And if I want to just clarify, there's no lighting on this tower? Or is there lighting? No lighting. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Oh.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, good evening. My name is Tim Newman. I reside at 765 Highview Terrace, about 600 to 700 yards to the east-northeast of the proposed site. And my south lot line abuts to Woodlands Academy, so I'm in the thick of this. I want to thank you for your time in reviewing this cell tower. I'm here in complete support of the completion of the tower at the proposed location on the former Barat College. The city of our standing deserves at least adequate wireless capabilities. This neighborhood around the site has suffered from poor coverage since the dawn of cellular technology. It is time to remedy this woeful situation. Although I respect my preservationist neighbors, I would remind them that this is not 1912, but rather 2012, and wireless communications are now part of the fabric of daily life. Somehow, in the last 100 years, the special character of Lake Forest has survived the introduction of automobiles, paved streets, telephone poles, and rooftop TV antenna. A cell tower is the only solution to this problem currently, and I urge you to approve it as soon as practical. Thank you.
Thank you. Further public testimony? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Matt Sands. I live at 701 Highview Terrace, not too far away from my other 2 neighbors, in a beautiful Adams-style Georgian that was built and designed by Bob Ruggles in 1998, were the original owners. And I am neither a preservationist nor am I a Luddite. I have an AT&T phone myself, which I enjoy using quite a bit. I am concerned about the visual impact to the homeowners, particularly those of us that abut Woodlands Academy to the south. And I heard several things tonight, and see in the petition several things, such as this location is the best screening opportunity when viewed from other locations. We heard about some of those locations, Western, Sheridan Road, South Park. I didn't hear about Highview Terrace. And that it will not be visible to surrounding properties. I also saw in the petition that there is a belief that it will not have a negative impact on home values. And I just don't know if that's the case. You know, with all due respect to Woodlands, when you made the expansion a few years ago, I was supportive. I didn't come to the Planning Commission. I believed what I saw in the petition, and frankly, I was excited that the school was doing well and it had the opportunity to expand. But it has created a visual impact. The addition has a stark white roof with the HVAC units right on top. And that provides from my second floor a great view of AC and furnace units. And we hear the noise up there as well. And I would like to think that as part of this process, we, the homeowners, could have a view. I haven't seen any photographs in the materials that I have that were given back here. I would like to see photographs, I would like to see pictures of what the sight lines will be from our homes on the second floor on Highview Terrace. How much of the cell tower will be visible? Will it be visible during the summer, during the winter? And what that looks like. We haven't had that opportunity. So while I hear that there will not be impacts, we heard it tonight, I see it, I don't know that I believe it. And I'd like the opportunity to see, at least from an architectural perspective, what that will look like from my windows. And I won't tell you that the location is right or wrong, or that the height is right or wrong, or the design elements are right or wrong. That's for the commission to decide, but I'll let you know the concern that I have. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Additional public testimony? Hearing none, seeing none. Staff response?
Just a couple comments. I want to reemphasize that the area where the tower is proposed is in fact low-quality trees, and it is an area that was intended to be cleared and would have been part of the Barra Woods development. It would have been developed with roads and homes. We have looked carefully at where the significant part of the South Park Woods begins, and this site is sufficiently away from the most significant trees in that area and is away from the wetlands. So this site really does two things. It preserves the South Park Woods, and it allows the tower to be tucked into those trees, into the start of the low-quality trees, just enough to really, from our views as we looked from Highview, and we weren't in the second-story windows, but as we looked from Highview and the other streets in the Northmore neighborhood, there was no visibility of the tower at all. It is visible from South Park Woods, as Ms. Dorman pointed out, but this location preserves and protects the South Park Woods and allows the tower to be tucked into the woods at the back of Barat Campus, the low-quality woods, to really minimize visibility from anywhere off the site. I think those are my only comments.
Okay, thank you. Petitioner rebuttal?
No comments.
No comments. Final questions from commission to petitioner or staff, beginning with Mr. Kuchman.
I'd like to have a list of all the Indian tribes that are reviewing.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Good.
I have no further questions. I'm sorry.
Good, thank you. Commissioner Carris.
I just have one question of the petitioner. The gentleman who was just up here who referenced, I know it's a little bit outside the scope, referencing HVAC systems. Would you be interested in potentially accommodating him with maybe putting up some screening or something like that on that part?
We can certainly look into that. The Science Center that I think you're referring to was built, I believe, 2 summers ago, a little over, maybe 2.5 years ago now. And we'll be happy to look into that to see what possibilities there are.
Thank you. No questions, no other questions.
Commissioner Ziccarelli.
The only thing that I noticed that's a little different is in our package, we have some actual photos with the 110-foot ladder truck in place. And it doesn't look as pronounced as that simulation does. It seems to be a little exaggerated on that simulation as opposed to our actual pictures, just in terms of the prominence of the actual 110-foot height. That's my only comment. And I think we have a couple pictures from the perspective of the playground and the and from South Park.
Commissioner Lake?
Yeah, I can comment on that because I understand, Commissioner Ziccarelli, what you're saying there, because number one, there's all sorts of 1, 2, 3 additional lower levels on that illustration that I don't believe we're going to see on the one proposed here tonight. Number two, I think that the size of the lens on the cameras here are a bit different, but I can attest that height there is from the eyesight is probably more representative than the one we have in our packet. I was noticing that because I was trying to get my camera zoom adjusted to correspond to what I was seeing versus what I saw in my camera from the picture that I take. But I think that's representative, except for the 3 additional layers of equipment down from the top.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Michael?
Yeah, the illustration I have is there's only one level that I have in our packet. Is there a,
Well, we don't need to be, I mean, public testimony is over, but if there's, Kathy, if you could clarify that.
Yes, this tower, consistent with the code requirement, will be constructed to allow co-location and could accommodate up to, well, I shouldn't say up to, but could accommodate 2, 3, potentially 4 additional carriers. Some of them may have those antenna arrays. Some of them, such as the public safety building, may have whip antennas of 18 inches.
so there could be additional, that's a correct illustration then?
There could be additional antenna
Okay,
arrays.
I stand corrected.
Any additional comments? or,
Just on the
Yeah.
last comment from Mr. Sands about a view from the south, did we have any views in the packet, or does the task force have any observations with regards to the view from the south? I think from all the other directions, we're in pretty good shape, but Mr. Sands seems to question.
A view to the south is what you're,
Right.
not from the south. Right. Well, I think the only one we have is the one from the park.
Let Kathy,
Yeah.
Kathy, you address that.
I believe in your packet, you do have a couple photos taken from in South Park, one from South Park near June Terrace, and then one from further into South Park.
Right.
You also have a photo taken, I believe, from Maywood,
Looking
near
south.
Washington, looking south. As you get closer, as you travel down Maywood and actually get closer to the South Park woods, obviously as the trees become bigger and you see less. So there was no visibility of that bucket as you came further south on Maywood. But again, we did not take photos from the second floor of any homes, but as we looked at the homes on Highview Terrace, There are trees immediately surrounding those homes, and a fair amount of trees, so even in the winter, the visibility is likely to be minimal. We're not saying that this will not be visible. It is a tower, and from some viewpoints, it was hard to distinguish where the bucket was through all the other utility poles. There are many poles out in that area. So it will be visible, but again, looking at various sites, this is the location that appeared to have minimal visibility from just about 360 degrees around it.
Go ahead, Mr.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Michael.
Kathy, did you get, I did not write down the address of the last speaker. Did you have that in your notes?
701 Highview.
Pardon me?
701 Highview.
701, okay. Thank you.
Okay, I have no comments, so let's go to final commission discussion and comment. Beginning with, well, we'll start with Mr. Ziccarelli this time.
No comment.
That's something.
No comments.
No comment.
Michael?
I visited the site last Saturday with the thing up above, and I think that now that I know the address, I sense that it's going to be considerably to the west and a fairly oblique angle. If 701 is, you know, as I see it on the map, so I think this bears our support.
Commissioner Culbertson?
No comment.
Okay. I just say finally, I haven't said anything. I feel we need to move forward with this. I guess perhaps your comment was right. Perhaps it is a fait accompli. There are no better alternatives. If there was, I think this commission would pursue them. I, for a very long period of time, thought the ComEd substation was a better alternative and supported that for a very long time. I've been a strong supporter. We started out at 190 feet at one point. We told whoever was behind the podium is that, you know, yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
forget it. Forget it. We got it down to 110. There's no other, we have to move forward. We just absolutely have to move forward. Delaying it only delays the demolition of Old Main. It's going to happen anyhow. I wish I could sprinkle magic dust and make the few problems go away. I don't have any magic dust, and we've got to do it for the sake of the community. We've got to do something, and we've got to move forward. I just don't have, I or the other commissioners nor the city has any better alternatives, or we would certainly pursue them. So with that, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move approval of the petition for the special use permit approving phase 1 of the new master plan for the Woodland Academy to accommodate this cell tower.
I believe there were a couple conditions.
Subject to the conditions as
The
mentioned.
two conditions.
As mentioned in
Number
the-
1, no improvements beyond those indicated in the master plan would be authorized by this motion. Use of and future improvements to the Woodlands combined campus would have to occur consistent with the February 2012 special use permit. And number 2, prior to the construction of the new tower, all applicable code requirements would have to be met to the satisfaction of the Director of Community Development.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Thank you. We'll move now to item 4 on the agenda, public testimony on non-agenda items. Additional information from staff.
Nothing further.
Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.